This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 158 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, I'm going to be diving in how to measure if a sponsored post is successful. I know that this is a huge question that a lot of influencers and bloggers constantly are wondering about. And I wanted to make sure that I dove into this and kind of relieved some of the questions that you have and to boost up your confidence a bit with this. Now, before we dive into this, I want you to keep in mind that there's only so much that I can give you in a 30-minute clip of a podcast. That if you are truly looking to work with brands long-term to make this a significant income stream, and it could be significant comparative to the income that you're already bringing in. But if you want to make this a strong income stream that is helping with your families and being able to actually benefit your business, then I want you to be aware that Pitch Perfect Pro is actually open right now. And we are only open for a limited time. We just opened up on Friday, and this recording is coming out on Monday. So doors are open. There are still tons of information up there. The reason that I tell you that I can only give you so much right now is because Pitch Perfect Pro is the step-by-step. It's the very beginning all the way through to the long term. And there are so many steps in between. Many of you will reach out to me. You've commented. You've said that I'm a great teacher, that I try my best to make sure that I give you information, give you an example, and then show you how you can put it into practice. Well, that's just you listening to me. Imagine what I can do if I actually can give you the printables and everything that goes with it. And when I say certain things, I can show you exactly what it means. I can't do that through a podcast. So if you are not already a student of Pitch Perfect Pro, make sure that you get in while cart is open. If you are listening to the recording after, get on the wait list because we will be opening back up, but not until next September. So if you're kind of debating whether or not is this the right time for me, we won't be opening back up until September of 2020. So make sure you're taking advantage of it if you are listening to this and cart is still open. All right, you guys. I actually wanted to share a review that came up recently, a comment about Pitch Perfect Pro. One of the students, Veggies Don't Bite, Sophia from Veggies Don't Bite, actually brought up and commented about the fact that she said that when she sent over the culmination document, which is a piece of what I teach inside Pitch Perfect Pro, the brand immediately got back to her and said, "We appreciate this so much, and it is so not often that we see professionalism and a document that actually gives us the information to let us know whether or not your campaign is a success." That comes right from her lessons and what she understands and what she has learned from Pitch Perfect Pro. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that. But again, I mentioned that culmination document. That was what stood out to the brand. That right there is going to be a huge piece of how you are building these long-term relationships. So we're going to mention it in this episode, but again, you're not going to be able to see it. And if you're a visual learner like me, you're going to want to see it. I give you those templates so that you know exactly what to do and how to put it together for yourself so that you can land those long-term contracts rather than it being a one-off kind of thing. All right, so let's dive in how to measure if a sponsored post is successful. The first thing that we need to talk about is what is a sponsored post. Now, I know many of you that are listening are like, "Jenny, we know what a sponsored post is." But just in case, I want to be sure because sometimes that definition can walk a gray line and people get confused on this. A sponsored post is when there is an exchange of either money or product, because product is seen as valuable because you're not paying for it. So anytime there is an exchange where you are receiving something, whether money or product, in exchange for you to talk about a brand in a post on your blog, in an Instagram post, in a podcast episode, in an Instagram live, that is considered a sponsored post. And we're going to talk about what exactly you need to make sure that you are doing when it comes to that sponsored post. Because you cannot simply just start talking about a brand. You have to disclose, which if you're writing a blog post, this is a sponsored post on behalf of, needs to come towards the top before a link going out. So it should be in your first paragraph, right towards the top there. You also need to make sure that anytime you link to that brand, especially in a blog post, that you are making sure that it is a no follow link. Now, I go into great depth about a no follow link and I show you exactly how to go about doing this. It's not something that I can talk about with you through right now in this episode. So again, Pitch Perfect Pro goes through all this, but you can also go and Google what a no follow link is, okay? You have to know the difference between no follow and do follow. Because if you do a do follow link, you're going to get dinged by Google and you will go to Google jail. And I can tell you from back 6-7 years ago when I learned the hard way because I had used a plugin that was no following my links for sponsored campaigns. And that plugin broke and all of my no follow links for 10 years worth of content became do follow links. I went straight to Google jail. So I no longer was receiving any Google traffic whatsoever. Imagine what that would do to your page views. Yeah, it's not a fun place to be. So you need to know the difference between no follow and do follow, and you need to make sure that you are using no follow links when you're doing a sponsored post. Also, like I said, you have to make sure that you are disclosing that this is a sponsored post on behalf of. Okay, if you are not doing that, whether it is in Instagram story or whether it is in a blog post. Now, an Instagram story, you're going to say it, but you also should make sure that somewhere on that Instagram story, you're using hashtag ad. An Instagram post, a Pinterest image, if it is a sponsored pin, so in other words, if a pin goes to a sponsored post, you need to have hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored somewhere on that pin. Choose one. You don't need both. Choose one. But you need to have it on that pin. I don't care what anyone else tells you. I argued about this with someone from Pinterest who was actually giving an example at a conference of someone's pin that was so sponsored and it was not disclosed whatsoever on the pin. And when we she went over to the blog post to show us, it wasn't even disclosed till the bottom. She is walking a very, very thin, very gray line in what she is doing. Do not be like that. Just be proud of the fact that if you are doing a sponsored post, that you have this collaboration, you have this partnership with this national brand. When you hide the fact that something is sponsored, you're being shady. There is a problem with that. So make sure that you are disclosing whether goes the same thing. If you are having someone swipe up for an affiliate product, y'all need to make sure that if it's Instagram stories like that, you should be disclosing. There should be hashtag ad on there. You cannot just do that and it not be disclosed or have something letting them know that you're going to be compensated for that. Most people nowadays, especially Instagram stories, realize that if they swipe up to something and it's an Amazon product, you're getting a cutback. You still need to say it. If your mom, or let's say not even your mom, maybe because your mom understands you're an influencer and kind of gets what you do, let's say it's your best friend's mom, has no idea about influencers. If she would go onto Instagram stories and watch your stories and not understand that what she is purchasing from you, you're going to get a cut of, there's a problem. So make sure that you are disclosing. Okay, so next piece of this is needing to decide who is the right fit for a sponsored post, because I know that that's a question that a lot of people wonder about. When am I ready? When is it that I have enough followers? Here's the thing that I need you to understand is that it is not about the number of followers, especially now with all the algorithm changes. It is about, and as much as we hate the algorithm changes, they have actually made it better, you guys. They have placed the emphasis on making sure that you have engagement with your followers, with the people that are there watching and interacting with your content. So when it comes to, am I ready to be working with a brand and putting something in front of my audience, you need to decide if you have that engagement with your audience. Do they talk to you? Do you get direct messages on Instagram stories if you're using those? Do you get emails back? Are you getting interactions on Facebook? Wherever it is that you are interacting with your community, do you have interaction? You are not ready for a sponsored post if the people reading your blog are your mom, your best friend, and your sister. You're not ready. That's not influence. That's just you building something right now. And there's nothing wrong with being at that stage. But I'm guessing most of you listening to this, if you're thinking about sponsored posts, you know that you need to be beyond that anyways. So make sure that when you get to that point, you are making sure you understand whether or not you have engagement with your audience. You also, in order to understand if you have engagement, you need to know your insights, your stats. You need to know how many page views you're getting to your blog and what's the most popular content, how long they're staying there on that type of content. You need to know on Instagram stories what it gets you the most DMs or the most engagement or the most views. What kind of content is it? What kind of posts are working really well for you? Is your Facebook page dead or are you still getting engagement over there? And if you are, what does that engagement look like? Do you have a Facebook community? Because you guys, we all know that you've heard in a previous episode with Dana Mostoff, Facebook groups are still working for people. They are still getting tons of engagement there. So if you have a Facebook group that is relevant to that brand where you can talk about their content or share your post in, you need to know what the engagement is going to look like and what that actually, how it would affect the people that are in that group. Are they going to be interested? Because this is the biggest thing you need to understand. When it comes to doing a sponsored post, you need to decide if it's a right fit for your audience. If you don't talk about cleaning, you should not be promoting a vacuum just because you need one. Not a good fit. You should not be talking about a stroller if it's not relevant for your content because you're a food blogger. Like, you have to make sure that the content is relevant. Now, again, some of us obviously share more of our personal life on our Instagram stories. So if on Instagram stories, you talk about your dog and you are approached by a company, a brand, to do a sponsored post for some sort of dog food, do not give them a blog post, because if you put dog food up on your food blog, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to want to follow you anymore. But if it works for your Instagram stories, then let them know that, negotiate for Instagram stories, and then move forward. You always need to be thinking about your audience because the brand is going to determine whether or not the campaign was a success based on your data, based on your insights and your stats. So if we're looking to figure out how do we measure the success of a sponsored post, well, it starts with you have to know what that baseline is. Because if you don't know what your baseline is, like how many comments you normally get or what your engagement normally is on Instagram, you're not going to know how to compare a sponsored post. So right now, what I need you to do is this week when you put out a new piece of content, watch it. Look and see your insights. What is common? Go back into your archives of your stories and see how many views you got on certain things and what was the engagement like. Test certain things. You have to make sure that you really understand your audience because that's what the brand wants. They don't care that you have been on Rachel Ray if your audience doesn't interact with you. If your audience cares two flippin' things about you, and it doesn't matter that you've been on Rachel Ray. So make sure that you are talking about your audience and also making sure that you know those stats when it comes to talking to them. Okay, the reason that you really want to know this is because many brands don't want to work with influencers one time. They want to work with you long term, but they're not going to jump in with someone into a relationship with a blogger or influencer if they've never worked with them in the past. But they ideally are looking for that long-term relationship. So you have to be able to share and to show that you are worth the investment. They want to know their ROI. That's what they need to go back to their CEO of their companies with, is what was the ROI of running that influencer campaign? They can't go to them and say, oh, I don't know, because I don't have any information. I don't have any insights. You need to provide them with that. So when it comes to getting those long-term contracts, you're going to start off working with them one time, and then you're going to be able to show them everything I show you in Pitch Perfect Pro and what I'm going to tell you about how to measure.
Whether you're a seasoned podcaster or just thinking of starting a podcast, you need to listen to Buzzcast from the folks at Buzzsprout. Here we go! Buzzcast covers everything a podcaster should know, from marketing strategies and how to make money from your podcast to the latest and greatest tech and industry insights to keep you on the cutting edge. Follow Buzzcast by clicking the link in the description or go to buzzcast.buzzsprout.com and keep podcasting.
You are going to be able to show them that they're going to want to continue to work with you. You're going to knock it out of the park. So make sure that you understand that when you're reaching out to a brand and you're trying to pitch them for something, start off, especially if you've never worked with them in the past, by pitching for one campaign. You're not pitching for 3 right out of the gate. You're pitching for one campaign. And if you're curious about how to go about pitching, again, Pitch Perfect Pro gives you the step-by-step. I show you exactly who to reach out to, how to go about finding those right people for your audience, and what to say when you do, all the way through to actually landing it and then looking to knock it out of the park and then get a long-term contract with them. So now let's talk about how you're actually going to be able to measure the success of the sponsored post. The first thing that you are going to need to do is that when you are working on that sponsored post, you need to make sure that you are keeping track of all the URLs for everything that you have promoted on that campaign. So the blog post, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram stories, you need to keep track of those URLs. And the day that it goes live, or within 24 hours of it going live, you should be reporting back to the brand with those URLs. And you want to be giving them to them immediately so that they can also, one, make sure that you've done it correctly, right? Because I know I've done it before too, where I've used the wrong term or I said something a little bit wasn't quite right. They want to check it, make sure that it fits exactly with what you agreed to if they haven't already gotten a draft, which sometimes you may have to do that as well. But they want to see the campaign. They want to see what your social shares look like. They want to be able to interact or maybe share it to their content, to their social media platforms. So make sure within 24 hours, you are sending them the URLs for all of your promotions. Now, that's not the end of the conversation with them, because we all know this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. We are not going to see the effects of a sponsored campaign within 24 hours, and they know that as well. So what we are going to make sure that we are doing is over the course of the next 30 days, you are going to make sure that you keep track of all of the engagement. You're going to be taking screenshots of any comments that were made on Facebook, Instagram, Instagram stories. If you got an email that someone commented on about that post that you created that was sponsored, you're going to take a screenshot of that. If there are smoke signals that go up about how wonderful your sponsored posts are, you're going to take a screenshot of that. Get my point here? You want to make sure that you have as much engagement that you can actually show them. So you get a DM, make sure you take a screenshot of that. Now, you don't have to leave the name so that they go and contact that person, which I doubt the brand would do anyways, but take a screenshot of it so that they know that there's a conversation actually happening, continuing, because that's what they're looking for. They know that this is about building awareness. It is not about getting clicks to their website to buy their product. So let's make sure we're clear on that as well. A sponsored post is not, the purpose behind it is not to sell a product. You will not, the majority of the time on a sponsored post, have someone click through and put it into their cart and buy it from your sponsored post. That's just not the way it works. A sponsored post is about building awareness so that the next time they're filling up their Instacart, or they go to the grocery store, or they go to Michael's, or they go to Target, that instead of choosing one brand, they choose another because they heard you talking about it, how much you loved it, and they think, I think I'm going to give this a try. So-and-so said it was great, and they had this recipe that worked really well for it, or they had this DIY, or they had this home decor demonstration that they did where it showed it. Whatever it is, It is about building awareness so that when they are actually in a place where they're going to have to decide on which product to choose, they're going to choose the product that you actually talked about. So that's why I need you to understand. A lot of people will say, well, I'm going to measure the clicks that I get over to that website or the purchases that they make on that product. That's not the purpose of a sponsored post. You're not selling the product. And that also comes into play in understanding when you write a sponsored post, it should sound authentic. It should not sound like you are trying to sell something to your audience. It should sound like you're just not randomly, but just kind of mentioning that this product is something that you're using. Maybe it's going to be a piece of what you're using in your recipe, or it's going to be a piece of what you're going to use in the DIY, whether it's the tape, whether it's the paint, whether it's the scissors, whatever it might be. You are talking about the things that you use, and it's just another thing that you use, and it happens to be sponsored in order to talk about that scissor brand over another scissor brand. We understand the difference between that. I really want to make sure that we get this, because one of the biggest mistakes I see is I watch influencers assume that they're supposed to be selling it, and they literally sound like they're a vacuum cleaner salesman talking about the vacuum and the specs and all this crap. That's not why people come to your blog. Unless that's what like your thing and you do product reviews, fine. That's fine, your product review blog. But if you are a mom blogger, people are not coming to find out about the vacuum specs. They're coming to find out about how to clean their house faster so they can spend more time with their kids. So think about how you can authentically write content that's going to relate to your audience. Okay, let's get back to how we're going to measure. So we talked about keep track of all the URLs. We talked about taking screenshots, because that is really what we're looking for. That's the engagement the brand wants to see. They understand this is about building awareness. When someone engages with you, asks you a question about the product, or says, I love that product too, or whatever it might be, even if it's just about the recipe, the brand still knows, oh, well, she said she liked that recipe. That's the product that was talked about was ours. This is perfect. This is the engagement. This is what we're looking for when we do a campaign. So we talked about that this is not a marathon. It is not a sprint. Let me try that again. This is not a sprint. It is a marathon. So you're going to report to them 24 hours, within 24 hours with URLs. Then you're going to report back to them 7 days, and you're going to give them updated stats. You're going to let them know this is what we're seeing. This is how many retweets we've gotten, how many impressions we've gotten on Instagram. This is how many views we got on Instagram stories, because we all know that they expire in 24 hours. So don't even try telling me you can't get me the insights on that. 7 days, you're going to give me all the data that you can on the URLs that you gave, page views, all of that, how much time on the page, as much information as you possibly can. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get back to them within 30 days. And at the end of those 30 days, this is where you're sending them a culmination document. This is where you're really saying, okay, here's everything that I can give you. You put it together in this wonderful document. And again, I give you a template for how to do this in Pitch Perfect Pro. So if you're not a member there, make sure that you hop over there to grab it. But you're going to provide them with that culmination document, and it is going to have everything that has happened over the 30 days of that campaign. Now, this is where most of my students at Pitch Perfect Pro end up with long-term contracts, because they send the culmination document, and then in the same email, they say, this has been such a successful campaign. I'd love to work with you again. I'd love to put together a long-term proposal in order for us to work together in the spring or whenever it might be. Now, in that next proposal, they're waiting for that brand to come back and say, yep, sounds great. Now, one of the questions that you're probably saying is, okay, that's great. You send them this culmination document, but still, how am I measuring whether the sponsored post was successful? Well, the way in which you're doing this is, remember in the beginning, we talked about the fact that you needed to have a baseline. You needed to know your normal amount of engagement, normal number of views for things. As long as your 30-day data is close, is like within where your normal is, it's a success. If it's above that, it's even better, because a lot of times brands will ask, how many views are you getting on your Instagram stories? So And they'll ask prior to signing a contract with you, prior to working with you. So don't think that you're going to make up a number of just telling them how many views. I get 100,000 views on my Instagram stories. And in reality, you get 100. Because now when we've gone to measure this success, guess what, guys? You're not successful. You're not even close if you told them 100,000. So as long as your engagement, your numbers are within range of your normal, your baseline, then it's a success. Because you have to remember that engagement is normal engagement for you, but it's engagement that they never would have received. And again, it is not a matter of measuring success as far as clicks and purchases. It is about building the awareness and the engagement that you receive, the views, the page views, all of that information that you are providing them with. That is added engagement they never would have received without having worked with you. And you knew your baseline, so you provided them with that. So that is how you're going to go about making sure that you are measuring the success of a sponsored post. I hope you guys have found this episode helpful to really clarify what it should look like when it comes to not only measuring the success of a sponsored post, but what you should be doing when you are creating a sponsored post. I appreciate you all so much for taking the time to listen in. I'd love to see what you're doing when you are listening to this episode. I know a lot of you will listen in the car or when you're walking the dog, or some of you even listen when you're in the pool. Yes, I have gotten a message stating that. So tag me, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram stories at Jenny_Melrose and let me know what it is that you're doing. I love seeing those. And I also always make sure to send you back a personal message thanking you for sharing that. I also would so appreciate it, you guys, if you left a review. Now, your review can be on iTunes, some of the other platforms like Spotify, make it difficult. I don't even know how to go about it. I don't think you can leave a review. So you can do a review, though, on my Facebook page, or even send me an email. Let me know that the episode is helpful for you. I've had people that will send me a DM on Instagram and let me know, hey, this type of episode really works well for me, but this doesn't. Can you not do those anymore? And if you've noticed, I've stopped doing some of those. So make sure that you let me know. I want to hear what you guys find the most effective and what works the best for you. Also remember, if you are not already a student of Pitch Perfect Pro, cart is open. The course is available right now for purchase, but it will not be until it'll be closing January 28th is when cart will be closed. The course will no longer be available, and then it will not be available again until September. So do not wait. That is 9 months. If you wait 9 months to start working on brands, to work and figure out how to pitch for long-term contracts, you're going to regret it because Q4 is normally your busiest time of year. All right, you guys, I appreciate you all so much. Enjoy your day, and I will see you all next time.